This is a bit different for me because, this is the very first time I'm actually in front of a camera. And if you've watched my previous videos, I'm always behind the camera just recording game footage that I've done or just recording other stuff like that. But I wanted to do this video because I want to talk about Iron Man 3 because the new trailer is out and there's a lot of people who are getting excited about it, including myself. And I wanted to express my honest opinions about Iron Man 3, basically what I want to see out of it, and what I'm a little bit worried about with the movie, and I just wanted to express my own honest opinions about it. Let's get started. Well, first off, the villain. I think they made a great choice with choosing the Mandarin for this one because the Mandarin is the big villain of the Iron Man comics. Like, he's like the main villain. And the fact that they chose him for the last movie, I think, is a great choice because the last movie needed a big threat like the Mandarin. And he definitely seems like a big threat in this movie. There's a scene in the trailer where a bunch of helicopters just blow up Tony Stark's home. And I think that kind of gives you an idea on what the Mandarin is like. No mercy, just a ruthless guy, and that's the way he should be. About who he's played by, though, he's played by Ben Kingsley, who is a terrific actor. If you've seen him in movies like Gandhi, that won him an Academy Award. I think that says a lot right there. But I know a lot of fans are going to complain that Ben Kingsley is the Mandarin because if you've read the Iron Man comics, the Mandarin, as his name implies, is just from China, or at least I think he's from China, and he has a long beard, he has this long hair draping down his shoulders, and he just looks like a veteran kung fu guy that you'd see from places like China. Ben Kingsley, if you see him in the trailer, doesn't really look like that, but he does look pretty good in the role. He does look like he could be someone like the Mandarin. But I know a lot of fans are going to complain about that, but one thing you got to keep in mind is that comic book movies like these always deviate from the comics in some way, in any shape or form. Like, for example, think about this for a second. The Amazing Spider-Man, for example. Now, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man, Captain Stacy dies. He's killed by the Lizard. But that's not the way he dies in the comics. In the comics, he dies from falling debris caused by Dr. Octopus. There's always some deviation from the comics to the movies. So, that's really something I've grown accustomed to by now, and that's something that people should grow accustomed to. Just enjoy Ben Kingsley as he is, as the Mandarin, because he's a great actor, and I definitely believe that he's going to pull off the role very well. And that's actually something that he needs to do, because like I said, the Mandarin needs to be a big threat. And this is the final movie. The Mandarin needs to be portrayed as a guy that just seems almost unstoppable. Like, it's possible that Iron Man might not defeat this guy. The movie needs to set a tone like that. And, it definitely needs to. And that's really something that hasn't been done before in the Iron Man movies. If you look at Iron Man 1, Obadiah Stane isn't even revealed to be a villain until, like, the last act. And in Iron Man 2, Mickey Rourke as Whiplash, I gotta admit, he doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, with the exception of the race car scene and the final battle at the end, he really doesn't do a whole lot. So that doesn't really make him too great of a villain. The Mandarin needs to be someone that just is a horrible person, is just ruthless, rules with an iron fist, and he won't let anyone, including Iron Man, get in his way. And that brings me to my next topic, because War Machine is in it. He's once again played by Don Cheadle, which is very good. And War Machine, he definitely has a good upgrade in this movie. His suit looks good. And I think there should be a final battle near the end where Tony Stark and War Machine just team up to fight the Mandarin. There should be like a big epic climax at the end, because this is the final movie. There should be an epic final climax for the final movie. And speaking of that, being that this is the final chapter, that is something that some fans will be worried about because typically in these final chapters, excuse me, um, someone important that you've been with through the entire franchise dies in this final chapter. It's not just superhero movies; it's in a lot of movies. Like for example, the Harry Potter movies are a good example. The Spider-Man 3, there's a lot of other movies. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there's always a chapter where someone really important that you've been with this whole story just dies at the final leg of this journey. And I know some fans are going to be worried about that. Like, who's it going to be? Like, if it's going to happen. But I think it should happen. Because the movie needs to connect to the audience in a really powerful way. And I think that is the best way to do it. Just kill off a character that you've been with this entire journey. And if that happens, then that really would connect with the audience. And that would make the Mandarin more of a ruthless villain and give him more than enough reason to be Tony Stark's nemesis. It depends on who he kills. But I definitely think that should happen in this movie. Moving on to the director. That is something that kind of worries me a little bit because they are changing directors with this one. It's John Favreau, whatever his last name is pronounced. He's not directing this one. It's a completely different guy. And I looked him up on IMDb. He only has directed about 2 movies before he made Iron Man 3. But the good thing is that he has worked with Robert Downey Jr. in the past, and if he knows Robert Downey Jr., then he can definitely perfect Tony Stark in this movie. And it seems that he gave the movie his own unique touch, because, like I said before, the movie looks a lot more intense than the last 2, which is appropriate. Tony Stark seems to explore Tony Stark in a new way, because in the movie he comments that nothing's been the same since the events of the Avengers. And I definitely think Tony Stark should be expressed differently in this movie, because we've seen him, and we've seen what his character is in the first 2 movies and in the Avengers. I think we definitely should express a new side of Tony Stark in Iron Man 3. Like a personality from Tony Stark we've never seen before. That would definitely be interesting. And the suit, the Iron Man suit, it definitely looks a lot different than it did in the first 2 movies. It kind of seems like it's the ultimate Iron Man suit that Tony Stark makes. That's like the big one, the big suit that's just gonna be for the final battle. And I think that's what it should be like. Tony Stark should just make a suit, like for example, in the first movie he just made the suit. In the second movie he made the Mark III chest piece to upgrade the suit, as well as those like plasma things that fires out of his wrists. And in the Avengers, there's the Mark VII suit, which is like the most powerful suit at that point. They definitely should have a point in Iron Man 3 where Tony Stark just makes like a suit that just destroys everything. Like it's the suit that's gonna try to stop the Mandarin. I definitely think there should be a moment in the movie like that. But now moving on to the story, because the story, I'm not really too sure what the story is going to be like in this one, because the plot, there really hasn't been a whole lot of the plot talked about yet. And I definitely think the story should go more deep into Tony Stark and the other characters than it did in the first 2, because the story in the first Iron Man movie was plain and simple. It was about Tony Stark building the Iron Man suit to, as he said, protect the people he put in harm's way. The second movie was just him coping to be with Iron Man. That movie was really kind of the chapter where he was momentarily defeated, or he just wasn't himself, and he had to just get his act together and just beat the enemy in the end. This one should be the one where Tony Stark's biggest threat happens, where his life is in danger. People should feel that he might really die in this movie. Like, there really should just be overall just a big threat to Tony Stark's character in this one. And not just to Tony Stark, all the characters. Like, there needs to be a really big threat. And I think they did that because there's a shot in the... Well, actually, there's multiple shots with all the characters in danger. I already mentioned the part with the helicopters, but there's another scene in a snowstorm where Tony Stark's, like, dragging his Iron Man suit, and I don't really know what that's for. I mean, he could have been battling the Mandarin and got defeated, and he's just trying to survive. But, you know, he's trying to desperately to get somewhere for help. And there's another scene where Pepper is sitting in a chair, and it looks like she's being tortured by the Mandarin. And that's something that really needs to happen in the movie. Just a big overall threat to the characters. You need to get that overall feeling that they might not make it through. And, like I said, this is the final movie. This needs to be an epic final battle. And this needs to be just the best of all of them. And, you know, it's going to be tough because sequels usually get worse as the series progresses, but there are exceptions. You know, Spider-Man 2 is in many ways considered superior to the first one. The Dark Knight is, like, way better than Batman Begins, in my opinion at least. And, you know, Terminator 2 is better than the first one. And, you know, I'm hoping that Iron Man 3 is just the big, best of the whole series movie that we've been waiting for. But no matter what the case, I'm really looking forward to Iron Man 3, and I'm sure a lot of people are. If you feel like you want to agree with me on this, if you want to, you know, actually it's just opinion-based. My opinion is, I think this movie is going to be really good. So, but like I said, that's just my honest opinion. So, I guess that's just the way... I mean, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people who express their honest opinions about movies. And some people might not think this is going to be a good movie, but I think it's going to be a good movie. And that's all I can say. So, see ya.